So, yeah, there's another one. I, like many of you, have enjoyed platformers and Metroidvanias for a long time. And so it makes sense to say that some of my favorite games from recent years are the likes of Hollow Knight and Celeste and Donda and many, many more. It's a pretty common opinion, but there's just something so satisfying about exploring a new world and solving puzzles, and so I've set out to make my own. But let's first get into why I think I can and what my qualifications are. I've been making games in some form or another for around a decade at this point. Starting in middle school with the likes of Game Maker and processing, and in high school, this inspired me to pursue computer science, and I continued to make small projects and the likes, robotics team, etc. I went to college for computer science and engineering shortly after and started making games in earnest using Unity. Many of these experiences are done in various game jams and clubs. I'll link my itch.io where you can check out a few of these yourself. I'll be the first to admit that they are largely rough around the edges, but the experiences were fun and educational every time. The most concise game I've ever made was Deck Souls for the Ms. Game Jam, a randomly generated road full of enemies and shops, allowing you to make your own deck of abilities and tools. It isn't free of bugs or issues, like the ability to go infinite each game with just a bunch of stilettos, and a bug introduced in the final build that locked you out of the end screen, which was very disappointing. But it's still getting comments to this day, talking about what people liked and thought could be improved. Let's get to the most important one though, Lorelock. You can see in the title that's going to be what we're talking about mostly. Although it didn't perform as well, Lorelock is perhaps my favorite project I've ever made, and was the culmination of everything I've learned and worked on for the previous maybe 4 years of my life. Lorelock is a Metroidvania collectathon for the Vimlark Jam. Although it ended up being more of a rage platformer for many people, it still holds up as my best looking and most complete game jam ever. The controls are awful, the collisions are rough, but the feedback from my friends was incredible. They tested, discussed, and shared ideas with me. One friend even made the cover art unprompted and began speedrunning it just for fun. And it was this sort of response that really reminded me what I liked about this. You know, this process. Making games on your own in a weekend and uploading it to the internet for it to get downvoted into oblivion is fun as well. You know, it's about the process, not always the results, but sitting around my friends exploring this thing that I'd made was just incredible. But what is the game? Who is the Lorelock? The Lorelock is a creature I came up with when talking to my brother. If you hadn't guessed, we are both intimately familiar with D&D and cosmic horror character tropes, so warlocks rattle around in our brains a lot. We were discussing original concepts for D&D characters, specifically goblins, and we came up with a creature that goes around accepting minor boons from waning patrons, collecting fragments of history in hidden corners of the world. Somewhere between a librarian and a treasure hunter, this mysterious little creature scours the world for new powers and knowledge. This is shown in the gameplay of Lorelock, as the goblin falls into a hole and must scour the ancient caves and other locations for altars, unlocking new abilities that hopefully can help the goblin return to where he came from. So where are we now? Shortly after this jam, I began remaking the game, but better. The collision system is bespoke and is the result of several years of fiddling, and what I had learned from the game jam allowed me to make it even better. Over time, I built more and more of the game, but have very little to show for it since it's almost all been systems and behind the scenes with no actual gameplay. Unfortunately, this is going to continue because the next big thing to accomplish before any gameplay isn't very sexy. It's going to be architecture. I was unaware of truly how much more time I needed to spend on the game's architecture and tools before watching Artificial on YouTube. Amazing content creator, definitely check the channel out and join the Discord. It's so educational. I do have plans for a demo tutorial section setting up the game and showing the basic mechanics, but this is going to be a little bit farther down the line. After setting up a more robust system for actually handling the game, the idea is to start dialing in the feel and release this demo. Design pillars seem to have fallen out of vogue a little bit these days, but this project is old enough that I did make some back when that's what everybody said was the secret. And so I'll share them with you now. The 3 design pillars are as follows. Number 1, small in comparison. The Lorelock should feel immersed into a world larger than themselves. 2, move around the screen fluidly and responsively. Nowhere is out of reach. And 3, uncover secret maps, tomes, and clues to guide your way to your goal. So this is definitely and obviously a large undertaking, and I have no idea the full span that this will be. Of course, working within scope creep is very important, but I would like this to be a game that at full length is at least multiple, if not several, to a dozen hours long. I have no Team Cherry aspirations for sure. I'm not going to just pull out a game that takes me 29 hours to beat my first playthrough, but I would like it to feel full and have room for growth after early releases. The idea for the demo is to release the sort of tutorial and introduction section that familiarizes the player with the key concepts of the game, movement, and combat before launching them into the actual main part of the game. It's a very important story build-up, and so we're going to actually save that for a later time. But for now, I think that about sums it up. I look forward to sharing more in the next log when I have a little bit more to show for it. Thanks, everybody.